The morning was absolutely perfect, with a clear sky and the sun shining brightly on the beach. The gentle sound of waves crashing against the sand created a peaceful and relaxing, almost hypnotic atmosphere. People walked, laughed, tanned, and enjoyed the warmth of the day. It was a common scene for those who simply wanted to enjoy the moment, escape from their routine, and indulge in leisure. But what seemed like an ordinary day was about to become a surreal experience. Among the beachgoers, a man, the protagonist, walked slowly along the shore, his feet touching the cool water. He observed the activity around him, but his mind was far away, absorbed in his own thoughts. The sea breeze gently ruffled his hair as he tried to find a sense of peace and escape from the chaos of his daily life. But without warning, something caught his attention. Something that changed his perception of the day in a single instant. On the horizon, a figure appeared that at first seemed just another person in the crowd. But as she approached, the image became clearer and the world around her seemed to slow down. It was a woman, her golden hair blowing in the wind, wearing a simple but effortlessly elegant bathing suit. She moved gracefully, and the sunlight seemed to focus on her, making her even more radiant. The sight of the woman seemed almost unreal, as if she were a presence transcending the everyday. As his eyes fixed on that figure, the protagonist's heart began to race. He couldn't fully process what he was seeing. Could it be? He thought, is that her? Jennifer Love Hewitt? The thought was immediate, like a flash. The famous actress, known for her charm and elegance, was there in front of him on the same beach like an ordinary person. He wondered if he was imagining things or if he really was facing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that somehow didn't seem real. Doubt hung in the air as the man forced himself to maintain his composure. His instinct was to do nothing, to continue on his way and try to forget what he had seen. But something inside him, an inexplicable force, compelled him to take a step forward. It was a strange feeling, as if this woman were more than just a celebrity. As if she were there for a specific reason, waiting for something, or perhaps someone. The atmosphere on the beach felt peculiarly tense, as if the entire environment were in tune with this enigmatic presence. It was the kind of moment that would change his life forever. But what would he do with it? The protagonist, still stunned by the sight of Jennifer Love Hewitt before him, hesitated for a moment. Doubt consumed him. Was it really possible? He was on a crowded beach, but the feeling that time had slowed down made everything even more surreal. The inner turmoil was becoming difficult to ignore. But then, in an almost imperceptible movement, she turned toward him, and their eyes met. It was a brief glance, but it carried something profound. Jennifer smiled at him, a genuine smile, as if she recognized him, or at least as if she knew exactly what he was feeling at that moment. She wasn't rushing, wasn't trying to avoid contact. On the contrary, her smile seemed to invite him closer, to break the ice, to continue this moment that felt almost magical. The world around them seemed to have disappeared, and the only sound he could hear was her rapid breathing. Unsure of what to do, the protagonist took a hesitant step toward her. The beach around them seemed to blur, as if the energy of the place had been molded around that moment. The sun shone even brighter, illuminating the scene with a unique intensity, almost as if creating an aura around them. When he finally got closer, Jennifer was still smiling, as if she'd been waiting for him, as if she'd invited him to this meeting from the moment she set foot on the sand. "Hi, how are you?" Jennifer said, her voice soft but filled with an authenticity. That surprised the protagonist. He was so taken aback that he almost couldn't respond right away. But when the answer finally left her lips, he noticed that the sound of her voice seemed distant, as if the tension of the moment had silenced everything around them. I'm fine. And you?" He was trying to remain calm, but the nervousness was clear in his tone. Jennifer, however, didn't seem bothered by the situation. She looked at him with genuine interest, as if she were genuinely interested in his answer, and this made him feel more at ease. The conversation quickly turned into something light and spontaneous. She asked about his day, what he was doing at the beach, and he, in turn, asked her what brought her there. But the conversation, initially casual, began to take a deeper turn. Jennifer shared a candid insight into her life, how being a public figure isn't always easy, and how she felt the beach was the only place she could find genuine peace. The protagonist, surprised by her vulnerability, also opened up in an unexpected way. He talked about the difficulties he was facing, the uncertainties surrounding him, and how that encounter, however unlikely, seemed to be a sign that he needed to change something in his life. As they talked, time seemed to stand still. The sound of the waves continued, but the warmth of their conversation and the intensity of their connection were all that mattered in that moment. They were both allowing themselves to be authentic, unpretentious, like two souls who had met by chance and were willing to seize the moment. What had begun as a simple encounter on the beach quickly turned into something more, something they both felt was meaningful, though they weren't yet sure what it was. And then, out of the blue, Jennifer suggested, "How about we go for a dip in the waves? The water is incredible." The invitation was spontaneous, as if the need to live in the moment was stronger than any doubt or hesitation. The protagonist, still not quite believing the situation, simply agreed with a nervous smile. They stood up together, walking toward the sea, and the feeling of weightlessness that hovered over them was palpable. The world was around them, but for a moment, it seemed as if nothing else existed but the sea and that unexpected connection. The sun was beginning to set on the horizon, tinting the sky with golden and pink hues. The water temperature remained pleasant, and the gentle waves seemed to invite them both to stay in the sea longer. The protagonist and Jennifer were now more at ease, as if the world around them had completely disappeared. The conversation continued to flow naturally, and instead of feeling like strangers, there was a growing sense of complicity between them, as if somehow they had always known each other. As they played in the waves, laughed, and let themselves be enveloped by the simplicity of the moment, the protagonist couldn't help but feel deeply touched. He knew his life would never be the same after that encounter. Something had changed. Life seemed full of new possibilities, and that day, which had begun so mundanely, was becoming a milestone he would forever cherish. But like all good moments, there was also something fleeting about it. They emerged from the sea, laughing and drying off in the sun as the sky continued its transformation toward dusk. Jennifer sat on the sand and gazed at the horizon as if reflecting on something personal. The protagonist, sitting beside her, noticed she was in a moment of stillness, almost as if allowing the tranquility of the beach to envelop her completely. It was at that moment that she looked up at him, with a smile soft but filled with unexpected depth. "I never thought a day like today would be so special," she said, her words filled with touching sincerity. "Fame sometimes distances me from simple moments, from moments like this, but today was different." The man, overcome with emotion, looked at her and shared his own feelings. He spoke of how their encounter brought him a sense of renewed purpose, as if the universe had conspired to bring them both together. At that very moment, the sun was now almost completely setting, and a sense of tranquility took over the place. Jennifer stood up as if it were time to leave. The protagonist, still somewhat dazed from the experience, looked at her, knowing that this moment couldn't last forever. She walked to her car with calm and elegant steps, but before leaving, she turned to him one last time. With a shy smile, she said, "Thank you for an incredible day. You made my day so much lighter." She disappeared toward the parking lot, and the protagonist stood there, watching her retreating figure in the golden sunset light. He felt a mixture of gratitude and longing, a sense that something truly magical had happened, but that it was time to move on. However, he knew that experience, that inexplicable encounter, had left an irreversible mark on his life. For a moment, he simply stood there, silent, absorbing the energy of that day. He looked out to sea once more, taking a deep breath, and a barely perceptible smile formed on his lips. He knew something had shifted within him, that he had found a new perspective on life and what truly matters. And as the last light of the sun faded on the horizon, he couldn't help but feel an inner peace he never imagined he could achieve. The day at the beach with Jennifer Love Hewitt in her simple yet symbolic swimsuit would never be forgotten.